Marc Miller is the Minister of Indigenous Service, and he joins me from Montreal. So, Minister Miller, you said that you will provide unconditional support to the Cowessess First Nation. What specific support will your government provide at this moment?
Well, David, over the last few weeks, we've been working with Chief Cadmus Delorme on this specific request, underscoring that we will be beside them, behind them, letting them lead the way, and so. When it comes to mental health supports, helping with the searches themselves, whatever they do with their community as they walk down this very uncertain path of establishing the protocols and figuring out how they want to commemorate, investigate, and hold to account. So financial resources first and foremost, any expertise in some cases, and the experience with Kamloops is indicative here, perhaps shutting down airspace for people that are curious and want to get a look at things and shouldn't be. To the longer term asks and supporting the community, closing one of the insidious legacies of colonization, which is those socioeconomic gaps. One of the requests that we've heard loud and clear is increased supports in and around mental health. The pandemic has exposed and increased that, but certainly these events are not ones that we would have been able to predict in any budgetary measure, but we know those needs are there, and those are ones that we will constantly be evaluating and reevaluating. So the financial support in and around this, the investigations and any difficult decision a community decides to take will be there for them. But there's much more than this. There are many communities that want help taking down their building or commemorating, and we'll be there for them.
Well, I mean, Kamloops and Cowessess are only two of 136 residential school sites or so across the country. So what about survivors of other residential schools across the country? What will the government be doing for them?
That's right. And certainly the events in Kamloops, the events here in Cowessess, and others that will come to light is immensely triggering. There are communities and peoples in pain, survivors that still aren't prepared to speak about these things, and communities that want to respect those wishes. So first and foremost, it's important for Canada to say we'll be there for the communities behind them, not take up the space of Indigenous voices. It is why Canada didn't speak first. It was very important for Cowessess and Kamloops to speak first to these events, despite the fact that we knew them, and making sure that that respectful relationship reflects what the TRC tells us to do, which is to allow those communities to take the time, but to have the supporting and the backing of Canada when they take those difficult decisions, and depending on what those decisions are. So with that, obviously, comes a lot of uncertainty, but what we want to reassure communities is that the government of Canada will be there for them when they take that decision, whatever that decision may be. And those views do vary. There are a number of communities that want immediate action, immediate help, and we'll be there for them. And there's ones that want to take a bit of a different, longer path, and that's something we also have to respect.
What about the need for further inquiries? We've heard for the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, they want an inquiry into burial sites at residential schools. Do you support that as a government?
Absolutely, but the form and fashion of that is very important as well. You're dealing with the government of Canada that has its responsibility in creating this. And so we don't want to be the ones, the perpetrator investigating the crime. So that doesn't mean inaction. It actually means a more respectful form of engagement, standing beside those communities, deciding what they want to do, helping with archival retrieval, knowing that there's not one central repository other than the Truth and Reconciliation Committee in Winnipeg. Though that is painstaking work, but it starts first and foremost with the communities and working with them to establish the protocols and what exactly they want to do. A lot of this will require community consultation. There are many people that don't want to see digs. There are others that want to commemorate in a different way, and coming to that one mind is a very, very difficult process and a painstaking one, despite the obvious public need for answers at a time of grief like this.
I wonder how proactive you can be on sort of building supports for the trauma and the triggering effect that these days like today have for residential school survivors, because we know there will be more of these. It's not just going to be Kamloops. It's not just going to be Cowessess. I mean, can you build the mental health capacity now in advance, or does it need? Do we have to wait until there's the discovery and the request? I mean, what can be done to put the supports in place in advance of days like today?
Yeah, and to your point, David, Canada, we could be as intellectually prepared for this. We could read the entirety of the Truth and Reconciliation report. And imagine yourself ready, but we're not emotionally ready as a country for this. Indeed, the events sort of show this and exemplify this. Immediate supports that we've deployed include mental health supports, include respecting and enhancing the elder circles or healing circles that may be needed, and being able to react nimbly to increasing needs. We've heard loud and clear, in particular from the communities in and around Kamloops, the need for long-term mental health supports. We're not good at individuals speaking about mental health. We're much less good as a country dealing with that issue. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated that, whether we talk about problematic substance use, the increased opioid use. That is going to crest, obviously, with these immensely triggering moments. And those are deep psychological processes that can go in a lot of natural directions, but perhaps not necessarily predictable ones. But it's important for Canada, in doing so in a respectful way, to be nimble, to be able to react, and to work with communities on short-term needs, but also in the longer-term mental health needs that are quite pressing in many communities across Canada. It's something that we're charting at government and getting a sense of, but I can't say with certainty that we have a full sense of what the financial amount will be, nor will we know for some time.
A key part of what you've talked about is credibility and moving ahead with respect. And I had to ask you about the actions of your colleague, Minister Carolyn Bennett, who has been forced to apologize for a text she sent to your former colleague, Jody Wilson-Raybould, and was described as Miss Wilson-Raybould as misogynist and racist and dealing with tropes about Indigenous people. I mean, how much does a situation like that, going public on a day like this, affect the credibility of your government in dealing with First Nations and Indigenous people across the country?
Well, David, it doesn't help. Clearly, no one regrets those words more than Dr. Bennett. Obviously, she is mortified and has offered her apology to Jody Wilson-Raybould. There is and has been a problematic relationship between the two as a result of their interactions in the prior cabinet. But again, when you look at the work that both have put into reconciliation, when you speak about Dr. Bennett, several decades of personal and professional commitment to that, I truly believe that she should be judged more than by one single text. But again, out of respect for Dr. Bennett and the work that she's done for Canada and for Indigenous peoples, she should be given personally the opportunity to speak to this particular incident.
Okay, so you don't think it should cost her job?
I think that out of respect for Minister Bennett, she needs to speak to this directly as to what her words imported and how she plans to account for them. She has offered her unconditional apology, and I believe that Minister Bennett should be judged ultimately on what she has done over the complete arc of her career and not one particular text.
Okay, Marc Miller, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, David.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.